Karen the Warp Spinster here. Thank you for spending time with me today on my channel. We are today going to be working with 2.5 inch squares-ish. I am wanting to start a new project. I have something in my head, but it's just going wild all around. I have no idea where I'm going. I hope I will know when I get there. I trust that I will know when I get there. And if not, I'll just wait it out. So I have some brightly colored and solid 2.5 inch squares. I also have some 2.5 inch half square triangles, which will figure into this, I think. These came from, this is embarrassing, but what the heck, I'm old. I don't care if people laugh at me. These are from leftovers from my latest quilt pattern, which is currently at the tester. Thank you, Andrew. And I don't know where my brain was. All the synapses weren't firing that day, obviously, because I have this many left over. Don't ask. Anyway, I have these, so we may have another half square triangle video coming up. I don't know. We'll see. I also, my neighbor is mowing his lawn. He decided that just as I set out to do this video, it was a good time to mow the lawn. And it's a beautiful day to mow the lawn, but it wasn't good timing for me. So I went down and just looked around in my scrap and orphan block bins downstairs, and I came across these. Now these have very little to do with 2.5 inch squares or even 2.5 inch half square triangles, but I remembered how much I really liked these, and so I brought them up, and you know, maybe they'll work and maybe they won't, but who knows. Then I also have my crumb bin, which has some pieces that are actually maybe larger than crumbs, and hey, here's a spare circle. Maybe that will come into it. I don't know. I have something sort of in mind, and we'll just see where it goes. And I am going to start with 2.5 inch squares, brights and some solids, a few prints. Sorry, Michelle, I know you're not that fond of solids, but you stick with me. Thank you. You do that for me. And oh, look, I have some other things in here. I have 1.5 inch squares. I've got to get my act together. And here are some black HSTs. Well, yeah, actually HSTs. Interesting. Oh, and then there are these. If you remember, we did some 2.5 inch squares once upon a time where we sliced and spliced things in. Maybe those will figure in. I don't know. Here are a couple of little, wow, I need to explore my scraps more often. So I'm going to start out with just straight up 2.5 inch squares, and I'm going to sew some 4 patches here. So I want different colors, and I want 4 different colors or pieces in here. And Michelle, here's one for you, and then maybe a pink. Now let's do a hot pink. Brighten up the colors there a little bit. So I will sew these into a 4 patch, and now the next step is going to be similar to a disappearing 9 patch, or in this case a disappearing 4 patch, except that you have specific ways that you cut those. And these I'm just going to do as I do in my usual manner, just slice in a couple of places. And at this point I want them to be straight. So I'm going to cut these, and then you would ordinarily flip things around and yada yada, and that is perfectly acceptable. I love that look. but I want to, I don't know how I would do that. Maybe something like that. That's not very interesting though, is it? Well, you could rearrange them, but I'm not finished here, so I'm not going to go to a lot of trouble. So I want to do another, no, I want to, first of all, I think, see, I've already changed what was going on in my head. I want to insert something here. So I'm going to splice something in. It could be another solid color, but you know me. So there may, in fact, be a black and white stripe in there. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know yet. That could work. I really need something that's, now see, a black and white stripe just makes everything better, don't you think? I could do that. I've got the other black and white stripe that I use a lot, of course. I could do another black and white print. Got a couple more of those. I could use one that's black on white rather than white on black. It just, to me, black and white just seems to add a little class to things. I don't know why. All right, I'm going to try that. I could also, of course, splice in some white instead. That would be an option, which would cover the full length, of course. But I'm going to start with the black and white and see how that looks. These may or may not go back together. Oh, and then we've got that. Well, I'm going to do I'm going to do these two, and I'm not going to worry about maintaining the proportions. So this strip may be wider than this one, or vice versa. I think if we want to maintain the proportions, of course, these would be 1 inch wide to make up for the 1 inch that we're going to lose in the seams. Do I want to do that, or all right, let's start out with it being more, no, let's not. I'm not about that rigid in this case. We're just flat out playing today. And Josh is back with the mower, but he's finished. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and splice these in. And I am back with this. And next we have a decision about how this is going back together, if it's going back together, because we could, of course, do more 4 patches. We could even do another 4 patch and splice that in there. I wonder what would happen. Getting ahead of myself here, but this may not be the 2 best colors for this, but what if we sewed these together and then sliced them and put them in between? It's a little bit different. The colors are really not quite right, are they, to do that? But that's an option. Or I could use a slice from just about anywhere in that and make that interesting. I also have a couple of leftover, these were actually errors, but leftover stripe things here that would make things, HSTs, that would make maybe kind of an interesting splice in there. Not sure about that. I'm not even sure I want these to go together. I could sew them directly together or put something else in between, splice in another piece. And these are different widths, so I would have to trim that out, but that's not a big deal. I could make these into pieces in the village too, couldn't I? Make a new village. All right, I'm going to do one like this, and then we'll explore what might happen if we used multiple 4 patches, split 4 patches. I'll put this in, and then we can get started on another one. Oh, by the way, I am pressing the seams open on these because I don't know where they're going to end up in relation to each other and how much it might bulk things up. And I don't want to have to worry about the shadow through, so I am pressing the seams open here. And I don't really care to have that seam meeting there, so, or if I don't want to be just a little bit off. I want it to be offset enough that I know it wasn't a mistake. So I might actually offset this a bit and then trim that, or offset it that way and trim a couple of pieces. I don't know. I don't really want it to match up, which I guess is kind of what I should have expected, huh? The other option would be to sew more pieces here, but let's go with, all right, I'll match up the seam then. Again, this is because if it's just a little bit off, so if I match up this top edge, for example, and it's just a little bit off, then it's going to look like I was trying to get them to meet and missed. So this will be, in this case, I'm going to match up the seams. You could conceivably expand on this, just this one block, and do a modern mini improv. I can see right now that that edge is not straight. It's going to make me unhappy. Pardon me while I jiggle this in order to fix it. Alrighty. Guess it wasn't as bad as I thought, but I like things evened up. There's where we stand with our first block. Now, we have lots of choices. Of course, we don't need to do straight horizontal or vertical splices. They do not have to be parallel to the seams. So I want to do another 4 patch, and this time I'm going to slice it diagonally a couple of ways, and we'll see how that goes. We have another 4 patch, and of course you could do this with any size of square. I just have a lot of 2.5 inch squares. Now I want to do a couple of diagonal cuts. I could certainly go through the center, and I do not want to do that. So, and I don't have to make it a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to do one there, and then one like right here. So now I have splices to make. I can either splice here and then do those together, or I can do it the opposite way. And because these are at an angle, it's that's going to come out in the seam, I hope. It's harder to swap these out because it's going to give you all kinds of funky stuff. So, and in the process of trimming, you would lose a lot. So I'm going to go with a pretty straightforward one here. And of course, I wouldn't have to do 2 cuts. I can always do just 1, or I could do 3. That's a lot of splicing. So I could do, well, actually I could do another one right there. It doesn't have to cover both sides, just to be a little different. Now I want some larger pieces and some smaller pieces. So this I'm probably going to lose in the seam, or very close to all of it lost, as I will down here too. But that's kind of inevitable. So I'm going to splice, I think, that one in there, and perhaps this one in here. And then we'll see what happens for that one. First step, splice these 2 in. Now, because we did diagonals, of course, it's going to be funkier. I could, this is the way it would normally go back together. I could shift this over here and turn it into sort of on point block, or add some things over here to straighten it out. But I think for this block, I might do something like this and then trim down there. All right, I'll go ahead and do that, and I think I'll use maybe this piece in here. Yep. This piece has a curve in it, and my next try was going to be doing a curve. So I think I might just go ahead and do that now. And I will do it as I do any curve, freeform curve. Gentle curve that's the curve I want to match up. And so I will freehand cut this after I get my glove. Model good behavior. All right. And I still try to keep my fingers out of the way, even though I have the glove on, because the glove is a hindrance. It is not an absolute. Nothing will ever happen to me while I have it on. And that piece is actually too small to be a crumb. It's kind of a shame. It would be a neat one. And then this piece will go on the flat side. After I have sewn that curve, I can see that I'm going to lose quite a lot up here. So I don't want to sew this next piece on up here, because that means I'm going to have to cut a lot off there. I'm already going to be cutting a lot off there, so I'm going to offset it down this direction so that I'm not losing that nice big piece of real estate there. So I do want to trim this to be a little bit narrower, just because I don't want a piece that wide. And now I can get that spliced in there. I could square this up into a square, but I'm kind of liking it a little bit on the funky side. That may play into some piecing later, so I'm going to leave it that way for now. I can always trim it to a square later if I need to. I don't know that these are going to go together, but it's just a couple of pieces. Now I want to try the opposite, where I start with black, and this does not look square to me. It's driving me a little bit against the wall. Like this one is square either. I don't know what's bothering me. Anyway, so I want to do a 4-patch with black and white fabrics, which I have here, and then splice in some color and see how the kind of positive negative thing goes. So let's do, look, I have another stripe, yay. And then I have a square with this lighter, and then I think this one, so we don't have too much. Well, let's see, maybe got another white on black. Let's go with that one, or maybe I want to do this. I'll do that. Leave that for splicing maybe. Emily agrees, that's the way to go. We like to listen to Emily. So I will do this, and then I'm just going to do straight cuts for this one to see how they look with the bright spliced in. I have sliced this once, and I was about to slice it over here, which is not what I'm doing today, but you certainly could do that. I think I'm going to do, trying to make it at least a little bit different from the previous one. So I guess with this much difference in colors, it's probably going to not look the same at all. And now I have splicing choices here. Again, I can splice these first and then that, or these two first and then that. Don't know if it makes a whole lot of difference, but let's do these two first. And I do have some pieces here that are left from other oh look, that's going to fit perfectly there. So I can splice that in there. And so as not to waste fabric, no, it's all right, we'll do this spliced in there. And I think I will make this one quite narrow and this one wider. Maybe. Yes, I'll do that. We'll see how it goes. Now I have this piece to splice in, and because these are different widths, of course, these are different heights here. If I sew these together here, then I'm slicing off that and I'm essentially going to lose it. I don't know that I want to do that, so I'm going to move this up this way, and that means I'll slice off a bit of this, which will work out all right. I just have to figure out what I want in between here. See if I have a piece that will be long enough on its own. Oh, that one's very, very close. That would be pretty, wouldn't it? How about the orange? I really like the yellow better. So, yellow it shall be. And it means we're going to trim a little bit off, which we will do up here. And that means, though, we're going to have to trim a lot more off that. I don't know that I'm really happy about that. It's just a little bit, but it looks like it's making a difference. I will see if I can find a long longer piece of yellow in my scrap bin downstairs. I shall return. Success! It has a little bit of a print to it, but it's bright and it's yellow. The screen shows it as a little bit green. Let me see if I can get it to focus on that spot. Keep it more true to color. And I think I'm ready to splice that in. The question is, how narrow do I want it? I think I want it pretty narrow. Pretty narrow, even narrower than that. Just barely showing. I'm liking this a lot. I don't know that I'd want a whole quilt with this much black and white in it, but I think it makes kind of a nice contrast here. This block is a whole other animal. This is, looks like a Mondrian color block thing, which is kind of nice. And I like the positive negative effect, so that the colors against the black and white I think are much more striking if it's varying amounts of each. And this one is, we could absolutely do the same thing, make a diagonal one that is the opposite of this. I'm not sure that I like these together. Let me zoom out a little bit here. I'm not entirely sure that I like those together. I would need more blocks, I think, to be able to tell some more of this. There's one more thing that I want to try, so I'm going to do another 4-patch, probably another one of the black and white 4-patches, and then color inserts. Let me put together another 4-patch here. I really only have, I'll just use the same blocks, the same, maybe I'll toss this one in just to see what happens. That does not look square. I don't know, maybe my eye is just not connecting properly with my brain today, so things do not look straight to me. All right, now another option we have You know what? I'm going to try it. Let's face this inward, though. Don't know where this is going, but may as well test out a couple of things at once. So here's this piece, and we've thrown a monkey wrench into the works. This doesn't look like a quilting monkey wrench, but it's a monkey wrench in the works because we're using a half square triangle here. Now my thought on this one is to do a diagonal line, but gently. It doesn't mean it has to cross over that much. So it's a wonky straight line. Adds a little bit of movement and interest to it. And I'm trying not to do anything that's going to cut anything off too drastically. And then I have one to do this way. Which I think I might do something like that. Now in a disappearing 9-patch, 4-patch, whatever block you're disappearing, you would do equal cuts. Cut it into thirds, but we're not doing disappearing 4-patches today. Although disappearing, but not for that reason. Now, I will splice things in here. Maybe use some of the same colors to tie it together. Ooh, there's pretty green though. It's got a lot of print on it, so I might do the other side. What else do I have here in green? Oh, here's a nice green piece. Emily told me no on the last one, by the way. So I'll splice that one in there, and I only need a little short stubby piece for this one. Not that that's all that short and stubby. This one isn't long enough. That's maybe going to be enough, maybe not. But we could do a yellow again. So let me splice these in, and then I believe I will splice in the yellow. Again, I have a choice of doing the splice in here, or I could put it on this direction and have a skewed block. I could even do this and have a really skewed block. I like having this piece up here instead of matching up with that, but I think for this, for the moment, we will go with that, and then splice in that little piece there. This one, I'm almost wanting to put another splice over there. That's not what we're doing today. Focus, Karen. Back to the task at hand. All right, so I'm going to splice a yellow piece in here. And again, I think I want it pretty narrow, maybe not as narrow as that. Although I do like those really narrow strips in there too. Don't like it very wide, so it's going to be a narrow strip again. I not only kind of like this one, I like this one a lot. I especially love this little artsy bit down here. Kind of a serendipity, but I like it. So today, I can actually see these going into a quilt. I especially love this combination of the black and white with the color. Zoom out a bit here. Again, I'm not sure I want it to be a big quilt with this, but I think that's a nice thing to start to explore. And speaking of exploring, today we have been looking at making 4 patches out of 2.5 inch squares, slicing and splicing things in. And we started with the 4 patches in different colors and then splicing in black and white fabric. And then we did the same thing, but this time we did diagonal lines, and we even looked at putting in a curve. Then we did this concept, but we did the opposite and did black and white 4 patches with the bright colors spliced in. And then we did this, except the diagonals were not nearly as acute as there. And I am beginning to really like these narrow lines. But I think I do need some wider lines to break up so much black and white. So that will be it for today. Next week, I think we'll do some more exploring with this and maybe think about how we could start putting these together. I mean, do we want to line them up? Do we want to split them? We'll see. We'll take a look at that next week. For those of you who have been watching my Flosstube channel about needlepoint and cross stitch, mostly the things that I'm working on, occasionally quilts. This week's will have a little bit of quilt in it. I have started a new channel for Flosstube, so it doesn't confuse YouTube as to whether people are looking at my Flosstube or my quilting channels. So I have moved it over, and it's now at the Spinster stitches. I will put a link down in the description if you want to go over and subscribe to that. I would love to see you there as well. If not, I hope I will see you back here again next week. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. In the meantime, be well, be safe, be happy, be quilting. Peace out.